Chainsaw Man Chapter 170 is both the craziest and the darkest chapter that we had in a very long time. One where I genuinely felt bad for Denji and couldn't believe what I was actually reading. And this has horrible implications for what it has for Denji's fate and the overall endgame of Chainsaw Man Part 2. The chapter picks up where last chapter left off, with Biram appearing from the Shadow Realm, revealing that if Denji listens to him, he can take him to Nayuta. And Denji rightfully tells him, okay, yeah man, go to hell. But Biram, he's pulling at Denji's heartstrings similar to how Makima would, and tells him if he disobeys him, then he'll never be able to see Nayuta again. As we see that Denji begins to eat the sushi, all while Biram makes fun of him and humiliates him in front of everyone, until Denji, he's had enough and starts throwing all the foods and the plates around, which gains the attention of Asa. But Asa being Asa, a girl that can't read the room and may or may not be autistic, well, instead of actually going in to see if Denji's alright, it seems like she's grown completely subservient to the famine devil and actually doesn't get up to help her do anything. But cutting back to Denji, he says, okay, if I go outside and kill all the public safety devil hunters outside, will you take me to Nayuta? And this is very telling for how Denji as a person has broken down from the amount of abuse that he suffered since the very beginning of Part 1 going into Part 2, to the point where he's willing to forego his moral values of not killing humans, or at least not directly killing them, if he gets some level of normalcy back to his hell of a life that he's living right now. And it's definitely one of the lowest points, I would say even lower than when Makima betrayed him. This is probably one of the lowest points in Denji's life, for him to even be saying something as crazy as this. But we get the biggest revelation from Biram and what public safety really wants out of Denji. And it isn't Denji they want, they don't want to use him as a child soldier like how Makima did in Part 1, using his hybrid form, or as Biram calls it, his incomplete form. But they're after Chainsaw Man's true power, the true power of being able to erase devils, which can only be achieved by Denji becoming the real Chainsaw Man. The real one that we saw at the end of Part 1 that fought against Makima when Denji lost the will to live. And this makes a lot of sense when you consider whoever controls Chainsaw Man can shape the world and even change history. Because briefly explaining Chainsaw Man's powers of eating devils, when Chainsaw Man eats a devil, not only does the devil disappear and can never reappear again, which, on the surface would seem like a great thing for public safety. Well, the big downside of this is the concept or the fear the devil represented would be erased from history. So, imagine if the American government said cookies are bad, they have to go. Well, if Chainsaw Man ate the cookie devil, then cookies would no longer exist in the human world. Anyone who remembered cookies would forget about them, and history itself could possibly be changed because of it in unforeseeable ways, some good and some bad. Which is implied to be the case because in the world of Chainsaw Man that takes place in the 90s, well, the Chainsaw Devil ate the World War II Devil, which caused a major shift in the world politics. World War II never happened, so history itself changed a lot, with one example being that Hawaii, which in our world is the state of the United States, it's actually its own independent country in the world of Chainsaw Man. Now getting back on track, this is the first time that Denji is hearing about this, considering that Kishibe never told Denji about the ability for the fear of the damage it would cause onto the world if someone as crazy as Denji were to ever get or learn about this power. And Denji rightfully says, that should be impossible since chainsaws are tools meant to cut down trees. And I'm not gonna lie, this line made me laugh real hard, because that's pretty much what the majority of the fanbase has been thinking about for years. But Biram surmises that cutting down trees is likely the only purpose behind chainsaws because Chainsaw Man ate them all. And this is true because the chainsaw's true purpose originally, for chainsaws, was actually for birthing children by cutting the baby out of the mother's womb. Which does lead me to a theory that I'll be covering in a separate video. But as for why Pochita would even nerf himself by eating parts of himself or the devils associated with him, it likely has to do with his longing for companionship. Pochita does tell Denji at the end of Part 1 that he was so strong no one could even hug him because he just killed him instantly without meaning to. So it's totally possible that in an effort to gain companionship, the Chainsaw Devil actually ate a part of itself to nerf itself to actually be able to form a actual bond with another devil or another human being, but it just wasn't enough and they were still too strong. Broom moves on to explain how Denji would become Chainsaw Man and really the plan that he and the Famine Devil had pretty much come up with, and it's essentially the same as Makima, only in reverse. The first being everyone fears Chainsaw Man instead of loving him. Chainsaw Man's fame really came from after Makima revealed Denji killed the Gun Devil, which was halfway true, but the true purpose of this wasn't to make Denji famous so he could actually benefit from it, but to nerf Chainsaw Man's strength and make Makima's chances of going against him a lot greater. In the Biram and the Famine Devil's case, they needed everyone to hate and fear Chainsaw Man so he would be as strong as he originally was in Hell prior to the series when he fought against the Four Horsemen, so he could stand against the Death Devil, who likely got a crazy buff as a result of the chaos that's been going on throughout the world. Which is why the Chainsaw Man Church, which was orchestrated by the Famine Devil and Biram, launched an attack on their world by turning people into Berserker Chainsaw Devils, and causing a disaster even worse than both the Gun Devil and the Falling Devil ever could, to get everyone to fear the Chainsaw Man on a primal level. The second point is they needed Denji to be miserable again, which is a way of saying they needed Denji to lose the will to live again, and by doing that, it would void a contract between Denji and Vegeta, which would break and would force Vegeta to take over Denji's body to become the completed form of Chainsaw Man. Which is why they destroyed all the sources of happiness that Denji had in his life, which he had built up after the events of Part 1, to get him to snap even harder and even more violently than how Makima broke him down in Part 1. And we see that Biram pretty much does this in real time, because just when he's ordering our boy Denji some more fatty tuna, everyone, even Katana Man, has a face of horror as the Famino just keeps chomping down on her sushi. And we see that Nayuta's head is served on a conveyor belt. Well, it's on a conveyor belt being served on a sushi platter. And when I first saw this, my face and reaction was like Denji's in pure disbelief and heartbreak. Especially when you consider how important Nayuta was to being the last thing that kept Denji sane. It gave him a reason to be a better person and become one, and not end up being a sociopath like Kwang Shi, who's willing to kill anyone who gave who she wants, or a broken man like Kishibe, the two things that Denji in some sense has become. But also how Nayuta was on track to turn out a lot more human, a lot more different than how Makima was. At first, he wasn't actually able to see Denji as a person and wanted to just destroy him the same way as Makima did, but as she began to experience more and more of human life in her life with Denji, she became more like a human little girl, which makes her fate a lot more tragic. This really shows us how crazy Fami is, as she's willing to orchestrate the beheading of her own sister if it means getting what she wants, which on the surface is saving the world, but I'm pretty sure she has some type of ulterior motives with that. Proving Yoru's warning to Asa regarding the Famine Devil earlier on in the story, right, that she shouldn't be trusted to be true, because, this chapter shows that, yeah, the Famine Devil is just batshit crazy. Despite being a gag these last few chapters, or most of the story, she's the definition of a character who's just a snake disguised as a flower. Now, do I think Nayuta is dead? Well, yes, but, theory time, really big theory time. I think the Famine Devil's plan to deal with Chainsaw Man when he goes berserk, her trump card is actually this entire time has been Nayuta. Because we know now that the Famine Devil can turn humans, and possibly devils for that matter, back to life from the brink of death, and also control people who have been physically starved. Now, being that Nayuta is, just being ahead and wasn't able to eat, she could use her power to bring Nayuta back to life, control her using her Famine Devil abilities, and use Nayuta's controllable abilities to control Chainsaw Man. Yeah, it's a bit complicated and convoluted, but not the worst idea after all, and it could actually work. Now, I wouldn't think the Famine Devil would get rid of an asset like Nayuta unless she was really afraid that she could come in and ruin her plans, which is a possibility. After all, Nayuta did ruin one of the Famine Devil's schemes when she saved Denji and Asa from the Falling Devil and the Justice Devil, who, after the pair defeated Denji and Asa, the Famine Devil planned on controlling with her Famine Devil abilities. Now, Naoyura wasn't having that, and in this moment, it was heavily implied to the point where that Naoyura could have controlled the Famine Devil and possibly killed her then and there. And when Naoyura showed mercy and told the Famine Devil flat out that she wouldn't be teaming up with her sister to save the world, that's when the Famine Devil knew that, well, yeah, Naoyura had to go, and her dying did pretty much tie directly to her plan to bring out the real Chainsaw Man to save the world or to accomplish whatever she wants to do. But yeah, let me know what you guys thought of this chapter, and do you think that Naoyura is alive? Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and if you liked it, drop a like and subscribe for more anime and manga content.